At the heart of the village, Sansuk and Molly have more than just a noodle shop. They share an inexpressible rhythm and connection that connects with each gesture and glance. Sansuk, a young man with gentle eyes and a smile that seems to calm even the busiest of days, moves with quiet purpose as he prepares his ingredients, his hands steady despite the noise around him. Molly, glowing with a warmth that draws people in, nimbly ladles fragrant soup into bowls, her hands dancing in harmony with her husband's. Together, they create a melody of the early morning, a symphony of clinking bowls, laughter and conversation filling the lively atmosphere. Villagers gather at their shop, drawn by the aroma of freshly simmering noodles, filling the morning mist with a delicious warmth. Despite their modest incomes, Sansuk and Molly's faces radiate with satisfaction. Their smiles tell of a dream rooted deep in the soil of this small village. Each bowl they serve is more than just food, it's gratitude. The villagers stood still in curiosity as the young man, Dr. Sansuk, stepped into their world with a smile as warm as the morning sun. His gentle eyes scanned the crowd with kindness. His presence was both familiar and strange. He stood majestically in front of his freshly painted clinic, a small beacon of hope hidden against a backdrop of emerald green mountains. In the faces of the villagers, he saw both their burdens and the possibility of a cure, and a quiet promise formed in his heart. The clinic was brightly lit in the dusk. As Molly stepped in, her heart was beating fast. She was dressed simply but elegantly, reflecting her inner strength. She stood before Dr. Sansuk, hands clasped together and eyes shaking. The dim light from the lamp cast swaying shadows, enveloping them in closeness. As she spoke, her voice trembled with the emotion she had just expressed, and he listened with rare intensity, a quiet understanding passing between them. Dr. Sansuk's words fell into the silence of the room, each word etched into Molly's heart like a stone. "I am your future son," he said as he handed her an old notebook. His face was calm, but behind his eyes he hid an unspoken sorrow. Molly was stunned and clutched the notebook tightly. Her disbelief grew stronger and stronger. Around those words, shadows and soft evening light mixed together, creating a mysterious aura, as if the room was holding its breath, waiting. When she returned to her small room, Molly's hands trembled as she threw her notebook onto her bed. Her heart was filled with anger, disbelief, and despair. The empty space around her reflected the turmoil within. Her shoulders slumped from the weight of the truth that was too much to bear. Each simple decoration was a reminder of the life she thought she knew, a life now torn and fragile. Molly sat on the bed and took a deep breath, her fingers running along the worn edges of her notebook. She opened it hesitantly, her anger slowly fading into a gentle pain. One by one, faded photographs appeared. Her life with Sansuk, the frozen moments, the first date, the day filled with laughter, their wedding. The warm light from the single lamp accentuated her expression, mixed with awe, longing, and the awareness that her memories ran deeper than she had ever imagined. As they finished reading the stories, Molly and Sansuk held their first child, Sansuk, in their simple home. Love and pride were evident on their faces, their hands gentle as they held their newborn son. The space looked simple, but it was filled with the hope and quiet energy of a family bonded by love. Here, under their roof, they felt they could never be defeated, carrying the burden of their future in their arms. With hearts heavier than the packs they carried, Molly and Sansuk turned away from the village, the only home they had ever known. The mountains stood as silent witnesses of their departure. The air was filled with silent resignation. The city skyline loomed in the distance. A world of steel and concrete that promised a different life. But this life would claim a part of their souls. Amidst the tall buildings and the din of the city, Molly sets up her noodle stall on a busy street corner. The smell of her cooking wafts through the air, too hastily to be noticed. Sansuk, clad in dusty, tired clothing, watches protectively from nearby. The people around them move like shadows, their passing faces reminding them of their anonymity in this vast, impersonal place. As the sunlight broke through the clouds, young Sansuk stood proudly holding his academic award aloft. In his simple school uniform, his eyes sparkled with the kind of dreams only a child could imagine. Behind him, Molly and Sansuk beamed with pride, their happiness lighting up their small home as they celebrated a better future in their son's achievements. At the airport's departure gate, Malay and Sansuk hugged Sansuk tightly. The air was filled with tears that had yet to be shed. Sansuk, with a small suitcase at his side, looked back at them, a bittersweet smile reflecting their pride and sorrow. They had given him wings, but he still carried their hearts with him, a silent promise that stretched the distance between them. Sansuk works part-time in a science lab to support his studies. One ordinary day, a routine experiment goes wrong, resulting in an explosion. The authorities later inform his family that he died in the accident, unaware that his consciousness is being preserved in an experimental AI system, giving him one last chance to go back in time and be reunited with his parents. In the dim light of their quiet home, Molly and Sansuk hugged each other, their bodies shaking with deep grief. The news of Sansuk's death still lingered in the air, an unhealed wound that gnawed at their hearts. Tears streamed down their cheeks, each leaving behind heartbreaking traces of unfulfilled dreams and the painful emptiness where their child once blossomed. The silence around them was suffocating, intensifying, forcing them to face this great loss together. At the doorstep of her humble home, Molly froze, disbelief spreading through her. There, standing in the fading sunlight, was Dr. Sansuk. His face bore a terrifying resemblance to her son, and his eyes were filled with a pain that seemed to span generations. She stared at him, her heart breaking between unbelievable desire and painful hope. In the dim, warm light of her home, Dr. Sansuk's voice trembled as he revealed the truth about his survival as an AI. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he spoke, his voice carrying the burden of years lost. Molly's face softened, awe and indescribable sorrow in her heart, as she tried to make sense of the complexities of his transformation. Dr. Sansuk stood in front of Sansuk, who could only stare at him for a moment. Slowly, awareness dawned on him. The familiar face of his son brought him both joy and sorrow. Tears welled up in Sansuk's eyes as they embraced, the bond they had renewed, fragile and beautiful. In that embrace, decades of love, sorrow, and forgiveness melted into a single heartbeat. Upon returning to the village, Dr. Sansuk works alongside his mother selling noodles. His presence brings happiness to Molly and Sansuk. The villagers gather, some smiling, others watching as a family torn apart by tragedy finds peace again through hard work, laughter, and the warmth of familiar hands. Dr. Sansuk gathered Molly and Sansuk around a small, worn-out table, an open laptop between them. The eager look on both their faces as he introduced them to the possibilities of online business, his voice calm as he spoke of the not-so-distant future. In that moment, their small dream grew larger with the promise of a better tomorrow. In the simple spaces of their noodle shop, Dr. Sansuk collapsed, his body beginning to dissolve into light. Molly and Sansuk rushed towards him, their faces filled with terror as they tried to hold on to him, but he slipped from their grasp and turned into dust. They watched in agony, his hands trembling as his very existence became a memory, leaving behind only the warmth of his light. Molly and Sansuk stand side by side and gaze out at the village with hearts finally at peace. They choose not to chase city life or distant dreams, but to plant their roots deep in the soil of their home, with the mountains watching over them. Holding hands, they move forward into a future defined by love, family, and the beauty of all they have endured.